All right, Braves fans, let's get rolling. I'm George McNair, and this is State of the Braves. Well, guys, this was not a fun road trip. I will tell you that. The Braves ended their West Coast road trip with a whimper, going an uncharacteristic 1-5 on the trip against the Mariners and Dodgers. I mean, you looked at this on paper. Yeah, it was a tough trip. I think it was safe to say the Braves offense was already not super sharp going into this trip. You can't underscore enough how challenging actually a West Coast road trip generally is. I think the Braves and most East Coast teams struggle with it a little bit. And anytime you have a winning record on a road trip, you feel like that is a great thing. Well, the Braves certainly did not. 1-5 on this trip, including a 3-game sweep that ended today, Sunday, against the Dodgers. You know, you go into the Dodgers, you just kind of puff up your chest and you're hoping that, it's a showdown. It's a showdown of what many people think is the two best teams in baseball. The Braves certainly didn't show it in this 3-game series. So a little deflating as a Braves fan for sure. I'm sure you guys feel the same way. Just not a lot of good baseball, and especially not a lot of good offense from the Braves in these games. I mean, they only managed to score 6 runs total in 3 games, including just 1 run in this last game. So yeah, just this series is billed as the showdown of a possible NLCS, and that certainly may be the case. I'm not gonna throw out the whole season just because of a bad stretch by the Braves, but I think it does serve as a reality check that the two teams are playing very different baseball right now. The Dodgers have maybe had some pitching issues that did not show up in this series. Their offense certainly did show up, especially their power bats. The Dodgers are leading the National League in home runs, and the Braves, which we're going to get into in this one, the power has very surprisingly not been there for them so far this season, minus a couple players. So with this recent poor play, the Braves have slipped into second place behind the red-hot Phillies. The Phillies have won 8 of 10. And this is a position the Braves are not used to being in. The Braves barely experienced second place at all in 2023. 2021 is the last time the Braves spent a lot of the season. 2022, of course, the Mets, they had to chase down the Mets. And then 2021, they experienced second place a lot in the first half of that season. But yeah, 2023, the Braves cruised in a lot of ways. And I'm going to remind you guys of this, but and I don't know that I need to. You know, Braves fans know that cruising through a season in first place does not guarantee anything in the playoffs. I'm not going to sit here and say it sets you up for failure, but we know that the season certainly didn't turn out the way we wanted to in the playoffs last year, despite a dominant team and especially a dominant offensive team in 2023. So we haven't seen that version of the offense yet so far. 2023, it was a joy to watch the team play every game because you just felt like pretty much every night the offense was going to show up and do some really exciting things. It doesn't have that feel yet so far in this season. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen and that the light bulb is not going to go off at some point for this team because it's mostly the same guys, but it has not happened yet. So again, yeah, the Phillies are now in first place. They've won 8 out of 10. They sit at 23-10 on the season. The Braves are at 20-12. So look, I mean, it's not like the Braves are in the gutter here. They could be the Houston Astros. They could be, fill in the blank of teams that have underperformed. So I don't think it's fair to say the Braves have underperformed as a team. The pitching has really stepped up in a big way for the most part. But, we do have high expectations of this team for good reason for, 2023 and the historic offense that they showed last year. And they haven't been that yet. And I know they have high expectations of themselves too. Now, the start of the season does require a little bit of context. You say the Phillies have maybe outperformed expectations a little bit. The Braves have underperformed expectations a little bit. And yet the Phillies are just barely barely have a better record than the Braves. The Phillies have started the season with the easiest schedule in baseball, while the Braves schedule has kind of been middle of the road. They have the 15th toughest schedule in baseball to start the season, so middle of the road there. But yeah, the Phillies' easiest schedule in baseball, and they've certainly taken advantage of that. Having the easiest schedule doesn't guarantee that you're going to be able to take advantage of that, right? But it's still the case. So while the Braves have perhaps moderately underachieved to this point, I do think, the Phillies' good start may not last, as their schedule is going to turn to be a little tougher the rest of the way. So while I am still quite optimistic about the Braves pulling out of this early season lull, um, staying up late this week to watch so many dud games was definitely a downer. Turning the TV off at midnight or later with the Braves losing is never a fun thing. So it's been a little less fun of a week, and I'm sure some of you guys have been feeling that. But yeah, the Braves honestly, what's kind of deflating is they looked outmatched in this 3-game series against the Dodgers. Ohtani showed why, he's Shohei Ohtani. 3 home runs, including 2 home runs in the Sunday game against 2 of the Braves' best left-handed pitchers. Max Muncy had a 3 home run game in game 2 of the series, and they outslugged the Braves 8 home runs to 3 in this series. And I think all 3 of the Braves' home runs were solo home runs. So just not getting a lot of bang for your buck on that if you're the Braves. So yeah, this stretch of games has been, to me, some of the hardest games or stretch of games to watch, I would say, over the last several years of Braves baseball. I would say, early 2021 was such a struggle for the Braves, pretty frustrating, a lot of injuries. That may have been a little lower than how I feel this week. And again, I mean, I'm very optimistic for what the season is likely to be moving forward. But, it's just been a bad stretch of baseball, and very little offense. And it's just not fun to watch as a Braves fan. I'm sure you guys feel that. You just expect this team to hit. They're talented, right? They're probably the most talented offense in baseball. You expect them to hit. So this lack of production, especially from the middle of the order, has just been disappointing. And I think the Braves are feeling that. I'm sure that they are pressing, fighting that frustration. I'm seeing that on Matt Olson's face maybe more than anybody. And I mean, I just think it's very real. And, that filters down to the rest of the team some too, when you're just not playing at the level that you expect to play. So the Braves have really experienced a fairly dramatic power outage in the start of this season, really all the way through, but especially in the home run department specifically. So the Braves are actually still 4th in baseball in OPS. They're 9th in runs scored, so solid, maybe not what you would, it's not elite. It's not where they were last year as really the best offense in baseball. But they're 18th in home runs. I mean, that's where it really shows up. The power is just not there. So they go from, a historic home run season last year, 307 home runs, tied for the most in the history of baseball in one season, to being 18th in home runs, behind a lot of teams that are, you would consider, a lot less powerful and a lot less talented than they are. Now, one caveat to this, the Braves have played fewer games than any team in baseball. They played 32. Most teams have played anywhere from 33 to 35 games. But I don't know that that's enough to really say, well, that number doesn't matter, because they are quite a few home runs behind the leading clubs, including the Dodgers. So what is likely true is that the 2023 team really spoiled us. The consistent power that offense displayed, like I said, it was night in, night out. There were so few down moments that entire year. It was just a historic year. And not once did they have a stretch like they've had in these last several games. So yeah, they're experiencing that. They didn't experience it all year last year, and as fans, we're experiencing it. And don't I know some Braves fans out there are maybe you need to be talked down a little bit. I'll try to talk you down some. This is still a great team. They're going to be a great team. I think this is probably the worst stretch of baseball offensively that this team is going to play all year. I really do think that. But it has not been good. So the last 10 games in particular, the lack of power has really been quite noticeable. Like I said, this team did not experience this power outage at this level at any point last season. So they've only hit four home runs in the last 10 games, and they've only scored 31 runs in those games. So obviously 3.1 runs per game over a 10-game stretch with, again, only 4 home runs. And if you consider, again, for the season, if you consider that Ozuna is tied for the league lead, I believe, with 10 home runs, and then you had d'Arnaud's 3-game, 5-homer barrage, then things for the season really look stark. Riley's only got 3 home runs. Olson's got 3. He hit all 3 of those early. He's not hit a home run in a long time. Ronald, thankfully, hit a home run in LA, but he still only has 2 for the year. Michael Harris has 3. The Kelenic Duvall combo, which honestly I think has generally been positive, but only 2 home runs, both from Duvall. I'd really love to see Kelenic go on a home run binge as well, but just not across the whole lineup. I'm not including Ozzie, because he was out 10 games. I think it's tough to judge his early power output too much, but he's pretty down too. So just generally speaking, most of the lineup has not been what we would expect it to be. And it's certainly not all about the home run. But for this team, it is generally built around power. I mean, that's how Anthopoulos built this team. It's how it worked last year. And so I think for this specific team, they kind of do live and die by their power output. And it's just not simply there right now. They're not suddenly, because they're not hitting home runs, they're not suddenly going to become a team that's one of those teams that's just get them on, get them over, and get them in kind of team, right? They just don't have that mindset. And so I think mentally even, I think they're feeling it, that they are power hitters and they're not doing what they typically do. And I think it's really getting some of them out of their game. When I try to break down what's going on with the offense, it really isn't just one thing. That would be very simple. And of course, we could dive into each player, and it's different things for each player too. But I'm looking at it from a team perspective, and I really don't think it's just one thing team wide. I think it's a combination of a few things, some of which I think will work them. I think it will work itself out on several levels. But there are a couple things that have me concerned. So I'm going to go into all of those. Some of these are more, nuts and bolts, swing changes and things like that. And some of them are more like mental and emotional and, that sort of thing. All right. So let me go into it. And, guys, I've got, let's see, how many do I have here? I've got 3 big things that I think are going on. And there's some things that I'll go into, deeper with each of these. But the number one thing offensively that I think is a problem for the Braves across the board are swing decisions. I think they are swinging a lot as a team and swinging at the wrong kinds of pitches. So as a team, the Braves swing at the first pitch more than any other team. Now, that was true last year as well, but the Braves are swinging at 37% of first pitches. And of course, some guys swing even more than that, right? That's just the average across the entire team. The only 2 teams that have a higher swing percentage generally, so not just first pitch, but swing percentage generally, are the Marlins and Rockies. So all I'm saying is the Braves swing a lot, right? They are free swingers generally. And again, that was true last year as well. But, other teams know this. And I do wonder if teams, obviously, they're coming in with a game plan against the Braves anytime they play them. And I really wonder if teams have adjusted how they're pitching the Braves. Certainly, the league as a whole has to step back and say the Braves offense is incredibly talented. They had an historic season. We have to do something different. And what I think that difference is the Braves are not getting many good pitches to hit first pitch. It's a lot of pitches either, maybe on the corner if it is a strike, or even pretty well off the corner, and the Braves are still swinging and missing a good bit, whether it's in the zone or out of the zone, getting behind in the count. And of course, if you get behind in the count early, it just kind of sets you up to not be very successful in that at bat. So yeah, while last year it felt like they did a lot of damage on the first pitch. This year, I think it's resulting in, some swing and miss, but what you saw in the Dodgers series was a lot of first pitch outs. And it just kind of deflates you, tons of innings where, the Dodgers pitcher barely has to pitch 10 pitches, or maybe even less than that, and just has easy innings. And again, because the Braves are swinging at pitches that are not in the heart of the plate, they're kind of on the edges or off the plate, and they're just not able to do damage against those pitches. I mean, one of the keys to hitting is you want to be patient enough. You want to be aggressive to balls in the heart of the plate, right? But you want to be patient to get to those pitches. And it just feels like the Braves aren't getting to a lot of pitches that are in the heart of the zone. Now, that being said, some of the players are swinging and missing a lot, even with pitches in the heart of the zone. And that's just a whole different issue. And particularly, I would say Olson and Acuna are swinging and missing at pitches they typically hammer. So that's a whole nother issue. But just generally team wide, yeah, they're swinging a lot. And I think they're kind of becoming easy outs because of that aggression. Again, they're doing it the same that they did last year, but I think the league is maybe adjusting to them a bit. So yeah, because they're so aggressive early in the count, they're also getting behind in the count a lot. And again, anybody, you can actually see this sometimes when you watch. I'm not a big fan of the Apple TV broadcast when the Braves are on there, but one thing I do kind of like is they give you, out percentages and that sort of thing based off the count. And I think it does highlight how important it is for a hitter to get ahead in the count and take advantage of 3-1 count, or even 3-0 counts when you can get in there and do some damage. The Braves have the third highest whiff percentage, behind only the A's and the Rockies. The A's are actually playing pretty well, but those are not two teams you would call juggernaut offenses. They also have the eighth highest chase rate, which isn't horrendous. Like I said, most of these numbers are pretty close to what the team was doing last year. But again, I think that the league is adjusting. It might be time for the Braves to adjust a little bit with what they're doing. So, they swung a lot last year. But the primary difference, if you dive into the numbers, is their barrel rate is down a good bit. I mean, if you remember anything from last year, you just remember the Braves absolutely barreling baseballs. I mean, that's 95 miles per hour or higher off the bat. I mean, how many times last year did we see 105, 110 off the bat from the Braves? And you're still seeing it some, but not quite with the same rate as they had last year. So again, I think it is due to them not swinging at pitches in the heart of the zone as often. So that's my number one. I think their swing decisions and how much they're swinging early in the count maybe need to be adjusted a little bit, at least until, the league has to readjust, right, to their adjustment. And then maybe they can get a little more aggressive early in the count again. All right, so my number two thing is bad luck. And bad luck when the Braves make contact. And the Braves broadcast has done a pretty good job of making this point. The Braves have been very unlucky with balls in play. They have the highest hard hit rate in baseball and the fourth best barrel rate. So even though their barrel rate is down from last year, it's still pretty darn good. I mean, fourth best in baseball. Unfortunately, they're in the bottom 1/3 of the league in launch angle. So yeah, they're hitting the ball hard, but a lot of those balls are on the ground and maybe easy double play balls. Some of those balls, I mean, like Michael Harris had two today where, he's hitting the ball 105, 107 off the bat, but it's just a line drive to the center fielder. And there've been a ton of those throughout, just kind of low line drives. Maybe it finds a gap, but if it doesn't, it's just a fly ball. It's just an out, and no damage has been done. So That's just the truth, right? And let's not get started with how many warning track fly balls and balls just fouled down the line the Braves have hit this year. I cannot believe how often it's been the case and how many times off the bat you think it's a home run and it just dies. I think that's been especially true with Matt Olson. He had two just today, one that died at the warning track, one down the left field line that was just foul. And man, I feel like he's had a lot of those. Austin Riley's had quite a few just balls die at the warning track. And more than anything, I think it's launch angle. I think they're just off timing wise. By the way, some are expecting a dead baseball or a deader baseball this season, and the balls are different from season to season. So I'm not fully discounting this possibility. So I think there could be some truth to that. But, we've also seen d'Arnaud hit 3 home runs in a game and go, 430 plus with each home run. We've seen Austin Riley crush a 450-foot home run. I mean, Shohei Ohtani just showed us today he went 464 off of Mentor. So I don't know that the balls are like, it's not like you're throwing like a super softball, but up there, but yeah, I mean, maybe by a few feet it's impacting the ball, and again, we've had some balls die at the warning track, but it's hard to go to conspiracy theory on that one. But the fact of the matter is the Braves have had a ton of balls die at the warning track so far this year. Um, Now, my number 3 issue that I think has been going on so far in this early season is the early schedule. I really do think, and again, I don't want this to come across as me just searching for excuses for this team, but I've felt this way the entire year that the schedule really lined up badly for the Braves in a couple different ways. Like just a very odd combination of things have happened to start the season. Like, they had to start in 2 cold weather cities. I think that probably helped lead to Murphy's oblique injury, and it's hard to hit. It's hard to get started and hard to hit in cold weather. Plus you had some odd weather games and some rainouts early on. You've had a lot of heavy winds blowing in, even at home. They've had some games again where the wind blew in like really heavily, and I think knocked down some home runs and hurt some offense. So with the rain out, a herky jerky start to the season, which again I really hate how MLB schedules a lot of early games in cold weather cities. I won't go off on that too much, but all of that's been true. And then just the injuries that the Braves have had offensively. I won't even get to the Strider injury, but offensively, Sean Murphy going down, basically not having him so far this season, losing Ozzie Albies for 10 games, and even Acuna's knee in spring training, I think has clearly impacted him being offensively fully ready to go for the season. And then the Braves offense having to face a lot of tough pitching, which certainly everybody in baseball, runs into a stretch where they have to face a lot of tough pitching. But, you think about it, the Braves had to face the Phillies to start the season with their top 3, the Diamondbacks early on, and that fell to face some of their top pitchers. When the Braves faced a bad a bad pitching staff in the White Sox, again, it was cold weather, so they didn't really take advantage of that. And then these last 3 games, last 3 series, the Guardians, the Mariners, Dodgers, back to back to back, that is a murderer's row of good pitching. So, yeah, I mean, it's understandable that the offense is going to get put down a little bit going against such good pitching to start the season. So again, if you just took one of these things or maybe even 2 of these things, maybe they're not a big deal, but when you put them all together, I think it's really hampered the Braves offense feeling like it could get its legs out from under it. Um, but yeah, it's just been tough. And then on top of all that, right, none of your 3 best hitters are going well. I talked about Olson and Riley and Acuna's struggles in the last episode, so I won't dive into that this time. But the fact is, Riley's seasons always go in waves, and I think Ronald is just too daggone talented to not come out of these early struggles and kind of figure it out and go on a big tear. I am concerned a little bit more about Matt Olson. Simply because Career-wise, he is an up and down guy. Like year to year, he'll have a great season and then a bad season or a down season. And of course, he's coming off his best season ever, and he's into what seems like a pretty bad stretch. So um, I don't know. I'm hoping he can figure things out, but he's pulling the ball a lot, and he's just looking really frustrated up there right now. So Olson, I think to me is my number one concern of like, is he going to pull out of this, or could this be kind of a season long struggle for him? I mean, I don't want to rehash the Freddie Freeman stuff anymore. People do that too much. But I will say, generally, when Olson came in, my one biggest concern when I was comparing the two is Freeman's consistency versus Olson's up and down. And so I think we're experiencing some of that. We already have experienced some of that. Now, again, we got to experience Olson's up last year, which was tremendous. But we're experiencing some of his down right now, and it might just be part of who he is as a ball player. Um, but all that to be said, I mean, obviously, we feel kind of negative right now as Braves fans with this last stretch run of games. But the good news is, I really do think it's all up from here, right? Could it get worse? Sure, it always could get worse. But Sean Murphy is nearly back. Ronald and Austin are looking better. And the weather is starting to warm up, which I think is actually really good news in Atlanta. The ball travels more. I just think they're going to get home eventually and go on a stretch run and get comfortable, and get that confidence fully as a team. And I think they're going to start rolling when that happens. The Braves actually have the fourth easiest record in baseball from this point forward. Again, that doesn't guarantee you anything, but I think it does set up the offense to go against some worse pitchers and get a little more confident and comfortable. So I'm looking for that. The fact is, the Braves have not played their best baseball by a big stretch, and I think that they're likely to break out soon. Do I have evidence for that? No, not really. I just know how good this team is. Um, Nothing went wrong for the Braves offensively in 2023. And how'd that turn out? I mean, not well. They got bounced. They got bounced early by the Phillies. So maybe early struggles will prepare this group better for September and October. We know in 2021, that team had to go through the fire to just make it to the postseason, and it all, they were well prepared and they won it all. So maybe some early season struggles will shape this team in a really crucial way to be ready for postseason baseball. Of course, we can't guarantee that, but I think you'd rather the team struggle early than in September and October, and that's what could be required for postseason success this year. The postseason success that we hope for. So, Braves fans, hang in there. I know these games have been pretty rough to watch lately, but we got a good team, and I think they're going to turn around soon. So keep watching them, and thanks for tuning in to me, and I'll talk to you soon.